Hi guys, this is Holding That Acceleration, and today I want to go over some expansion accessories for the MyChron 5. Today we're going to be focusing on what we like to use in kart racing, and these are some of the best tools that you can use to help get your lap times faster around the track, give you a little bit more data, especially helpful if you're tuning for kids or if you are, brand new to the sport and you got someone who can help go over this telemetry with you and tell you some advice on how to get around the track faster. Some of the key sensors we have here today, we have a throttle position sensor, we have a steering angle sensor, we have a Lambda controller, which will be used to help tune based off of your exhaust air-fuel ratio. You'll also see we have a tire temperature control setup here as well. And we also have a AIM Smartycam with a 2-port data hub. Accessories like this camera here are some of the most popular things we sell in addition to your MyChron 4 or 5, 5S, 2T. This is probably the most helpful piece of equipment we sell. What this will do is record video footage. Now, some of you might be saying, well, I've got a GoPro camera and I've got a MyChron, why can I not just use that? You can. What this is going to do differently is this is going to record your video the same way your GoPro will. However, this integrates all the data that you're collecting from your MyChron 5 and whatever sensors you have plugged into it, and is going to integrate it with the video as it's recording live time. So if you're going through a corner and you're on the gas or on the brake and you have a pedal position sensor attached to your cart, you'll be able to see those throttle inputs at the same time you're seeing the footage as it was recorded on the track. So this will make playing back and going through all of your data you're collecting a lot easier and smoother of an experience. And there's some cool customizations you can do with the Race Studio program to help lay things out the way you want it. So that way you're getting the information you want or the information you want to display if you upload it to your YouTube channel or you want to share it to your friends. With the Smartycam setup, there are a few things you need to consider when you're purchasing it. Most people will get a camera out of the box, plug it up to the setup, and they'll wonder why the battery is not lasting. The problem with that is you will need to purchase one additional accessory, depending on what other accessories you might consider running in order to make sure your camera is correctly functioning. Here, we have a 2-port data hub, and this has an external power connection built into it. This is important. The camera must rely on an external power source in order to keep the camera running while you're recording. The camera does have a built-in battery supply to it, but if you go to try to record footage with it, it's only going to last a few minutes and it will die out on you, and you're not going to get a lot of information that way. So if you are getting a Smartycam, you'll want to make sure that you are getting either a 2-port data hub. You can have a MyChron expansion or anything in that lineup that's going to give you a 12-volt power source and connect it to your karting battery. In this case, we have a 12-volt kart-sized battery. For automotive guys, same concept will apply, but it'll be to your 12-volt power source on your car or on your motorcycle. But those are an absolute necessity. Again, we can't stress that. Now, keep in mind that there are other accessories that you might be looking to run. So if you plan on just running the camera and that's it, the cheapest way to make sure your setup is running is to get a 2-port data hub, connect that to your camera, connect that to the back of your MyChron via the EXP port on the bottom. We'll show that here. You're going to have 3 ports on the back of your MyChron, and this is the top, this is the bottom. The top here, you're going to have, in this case, this is a 2T. This is going to have a 7-pin connector, whereas your temperature on a 1T, or just a regular MyChron 5S or 4, is going to be a 3-pin connector. You're going to have your lap timer port here, which is a 4-pin, and then the bottom one, you're going to have EXP/PC. This is a 5-pin connector. So this is where you'll plug in your Smartycam via the 2-port data hub or the MyChron expansion, depending on which one you have purchased. So we'll go ahead and we'll plug this setup right back in there. Right on. Okay. So if you plan on running other accessories with this, you might need to consider getting this data hub instead. This is going to have 4 channels of 5-pin connectors to it. And this again will plug into the EXP port on the back of your MyChron. Depending on what other accessories you get from here will determine whether you're just running this, or in this case, we'd like to also run our Smartycam. So what we'd want to do is take this, connect this into the back of our MyChron, and what we'll do is we'll connect our MyChron expansion directly into the first, second, third, any port on your data hub here. From there, your MyChron expansion is going to have 4 channels of 4-pin connectors. Now, this will be especially helpful if you're trying to put pedal position sensors, steering angle sensors. There's quite a few other things that you, with 4 pins, that you'll need to connect into here. And some of it are items that we don't use for kart racing. So automotive guys, I am leaving out some information. There's also an EXP port here, so that way you're able to plug in other accessories. In this case, if I wanted to plug in our Smartycam to the setup, we would plug it into the EXP port on this expansion. Would be the easiest way to do it. You can also, on older setups, plug that into the data hub as well. Again, you have to remember the newer Smartycams rely on an external power. So in that case, you'd want to run it off the expansion rather than the data hub. But if you have an older Smartycam, you should be able to plug it directly into this data hub and it would work completely fine. It's important that you get the order of operations correct. So take a look at this guide here and you'll be able to see a couple of different branches depending on what accessories you're looking to add into. So if you want to run your Lambda, you want to run your older Smartycam, or you want to add things like your tire temperature sensor kit, you also want to run that expansion because maybe you've got your wheel speed sensors, maybe you got your steering wheel position sensor, your throttle position or brake position. All that will need a branch into each one of these hubs depending on what inputs you're looking to give into there. And of course, you're going to have your standard temperature sensors and your RPM lead or your lap timer will just plug directly into the back of the MyChron, so you don't have to worry about plugging that into any of these ports here. So now we've got a good look at that setup. We can look at a bare bones setup of people who are looking to add some pedal position and steering position to their cart. So here we have a expansion once again, and we have 2 of the channels plugged, one into a pedal position sensor, and we have one into a steering angle sensor. Now, what you'll need to do is anytime you're running an expansion, you're going to need to go ahead and power on your unit. I'm going to go ahead and hit on button here. It's going to take us to the front page. We're going to need to go to menu. And once you're in the menu, you are going to want to go to system settings, I believe it is. We're going to enter that. And we're going to want to go over to this guy right here where it looks like it's got MyChron and little arms off of it. Hit the next button a few times. We're going to go ahead and hit enter. It's going to take you to this page. By default, you're going to see channels 1, 2, 3, and 4 will be set to none. In this case, if you want to change any of that, all we are going to do is hit enter on channel 1, for example. It's going to ask for a function. In this case, we're going to go to steering. And just to make sure I'm getting right on this menu correctly, you're going to see a drop-down list of all these different types of sensors or auxiliary data collectors that you'll be able to configure on your MyChron. So you have throttle, brake, water temp, speed, steering. You have an analog 100%, and you'll also have a brake pressure, gas valve if that applies to you, wheel temp, and along 5 volt, and that's it. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and go back, and we've already set a steering and a throttle channel on this expansion. And what's cool here is you'll be able to see how your data is reading into the MyChron and be able to calibrate it. So here, for example, we have a pedal position sensor right over the MyChron here, and this is a magnetic sensor. So as soon as we start bringing this closer to the device, you'll start seeing the percentage going up on the second channel here, showing the calibrated range of your pedal. So in this case, you got to get within, don't want it touching, you want it real close. So this is at topping off at 98%. So we'd have to calibrate this to make sure we're getting the full arc. As well as you'll see we have a degree range for the steering sensor here. So if I start turning the setup just a little bit here, you'll see that that number is going to change just a little bit. Now this has got a pretty wide sweep. This is based off of a potentiometer. So depending on how you've got the setup for your steering shaft, in this case for a cart, or on a car, you'll have like a rack and pinion system and a steering column in there. You'll have to adjust that and recalibrate it for whatever range of your steering system is. In this case, cars often have more movement side to side than a cart will, so you'll have to make sure you calibrate that accordingly. So that's how you access that. Now, most of this information that you'll be plugging in will honestly be most useful in Race Studio. In this case, the MyChron will allow you to add 4 custom fields in these corners that will allow you to put different things, like you wanted to have your lap time, you want to have your engine temperatures, you want to have miles per hour. In this case, we were able to get a steering angle on there. You can see right now it's measuring at negative 750 degrees on the current calibration. You can have that show up on the front. However, with your setups, you won't necessarily have a lot of information accessible until you go onto Race Studio and you look at the telemetry further in there, which we don't have that setup going. We'll have to probably touch base on that at a later time point, but we'd like to hear your opinion and see what questions you have about Race Studio. Maybe we can answer some more there. To touch base on a pedal position sensor, before we go into anything else, you can mount that on a brake or gas pedal. What you typically want to do is, I'll unplug this and bring this over here so you can see a little bit better what it looks like. You're going to have a sensor and a magnet. Most people, what they'll do is they'll have the sensor mounted somewhere up in front of the pedal, and they'll have this magnet right here mounted on the pedal. In this case, you'll usually bolt it somewhere on the side, and you'll adjust this piece right up here, so that way the magnet gets pretty close to the sensor. So as you start hitting the pedal, this starts getting closer, and depending on what distances you have set in your calibration will tell you your percentage off of that. Some pedals have wider range of travel, so you have to make sure that you set the distance correctly. I believe you're not supposed to have this any closer than 5 millimeters from the magnet to the sensor. That's the minimum distance you have to have between those to be calibrated correctly. And the maximum distance that this should be apart from each other should be 40 millimeters. And anything within that range will adjust correctly, and the sensor should work just fine. Another thing you want to set up on your cart is your steering sensor. I have kind of a strange mock-up here to kind of demonstrate maybe how you might approach this on a cart, for example. And most of you will be familiar with a steering block where the steering column pivots about. And what AIM has provided with their kit is this angle iron at 90 degrees with a hole drilled out here and 2 small holes here. You could probably fit an M6 bolt here, and your potentiometer will connect into here. You'll screw that down tight so this can't move, and you'll have 2 pulleys and a little miniature belt system, akin to one of the water pump pulleys we're familiar with, or car guys, this would kind of look like a timing belt setup. You may have to get creative with this, but probably the easiest way you can go about it is modifying this bracket or making a bracket similar to, and bolting it off of the bolt that supports your steering block on your cart, and running the belt and potentiometer basically right there at the base of that. So it's not in the way, and that's a pretty accessible spot rather than trying to mount it lower on the steering column or anywhere goofy. So as you start to rotate the column, it'll start rotating that belt on that potentiometer. Now the potentiometer here will not rotate infinitely in any direction. So you will hit an end zone, in this case, any moment, right there. You hit an end zone there, and you got to make sure that you have set the belt correctly and centered your potentiometer and centered your steering column when installing it. Like I said, you will have to get a little creative because this is all that AIM provides with their setup out of the box. So you may need to purchase some additional brackets or customize something in order to get that smoothly installed. And you'll definitely want a little bit more tension on that belt than we have showcased here. Other than that, there's a lot of other details regarding that we really can't touch base on this. So we're going to have to go to our next accessory. We have a Lambda sensor here, again, which automotive guys will be very familiar with. This is a wideband sensor. This is going to get an air-fuel ratio mix based off of what it's picking up from the exhaust gases on your cart, whether it's a 2-stroke or a 4-stroke. What this will not do, at least for karting guys, this won't make any lifetime changes to how your air fuel setup is. You have to adjust it on the carburetor you have. So this will only work in helping if you need a wideband controller for like your, if you have an AIM ECU setup where it can make adjustments based off of the wideband signal here. So on your cart, you're basically going to get a AFR, whether they read that as a Lambda, like a 1.0 is ideal, or over or under will tell you if you're rich or lean, or you can get a stoic, like 14:1 air mixture and figure out if you're rich or lean based off of those number values. All that you should be able to pick up, especially when you integrate all this into your Racer Studio software on your PC. Some guys are familiar with the EGT setups, and what this will do is just give you a little bit more of an accurate reading compared to getting an exhaust gas temperature and trying to base off of those patterns if you're familiar with tuning with an EGT. But very similar principle otherwise. Does the same thing, but just gives you a different way to digest that information. Tire temperature sensor kits. These are very unique. These are a new product that AIM came out with a few years ago, and these are really cool for kart racing. You can get a bracket kit just like this one here. We don't have it set up on a cart. Again, you may have to get a little bit creative with the brackets that they have, but basically you're just going to go ahead and bolt this sensor very near a like the center of your tire, and you'll have one on each corner of the cart, and you plug them into the correct channels based off of the position on the cart there. This will then either go into your expansion or directly into the back of your MyChron, depending on what other accessories you have. And this will give you an infrared temperature reading of your tire and average it out over a particular distance and give you, an averaged reading of that in degrees or Celsius, depending on how you have it set up. This is very useful for tuning your cart. That way you're able to collect data live time on track, pull off, and as any one of you guys know, if you keep an IR temperature gun on your cart stand, as you pull in off the scales, your tires are already cooling down. So you might get an idea for proportionate, which tire is still running the hottest, but you won't get that exact measurement and know if you're pushing that threshold that you want on your cart. So we think this is super cool. Definitely check with your local karting rules though, because a Lambda sensor or your temperature setup for your tires might be outlawed in certain clubs. So just make sure you read the rules before you install that onto your setup. If you aren't able to race with it, the data is still really crucial to pick this stuff up if you're practicing a lot at a particular track, and that way you can hopefully dial your setup in before you hit race day, and then you just unplug or uninstall that stuff, or you have it on a spare cart, whatever you'd like to do. Other than that, there are lots of other things that AIM offer, especially for automotive guys, that you can plug into these setups. But we find these to be the most useful for kart racing. If you guys have any other questions about MyChron stuff, leave a comment below or shoot us an email or give us a phone call. We'd be happy to help you and see what you need. Very technical information can also be found on AIM Sports' website. You can also call AIM Sports LLC. They have a good crew of people there that are willing to help you with any technical details you have about your MyChron setup. Other than that, this is Acceleration Car Racing, and thanks for watching our video.